This podcast is brought to you by Social Economy Europe. Welcome to Social Economy Talks, an in-depth look into the social economy in practice. Together, we will discover the successes of different social economy actors and find out how social economy offers inclusion, diversity, quality jobs, social innovation, and sustainable development through practical solutions for the common good. Join me on a journey to find out what makes a successful social economy entity and how we can overcome barriers to future growth of the social economy. As a biologist, I am fascinated by ways that we can improve our environment as individuals and as a society. There are myriad things which we can do in order to live more sustainable lives. Large, well-known NGOs like WWF and Greenpeace give us important headlines on how nature is at the heart of sustainability, how biodiversity is intrinsically connected with greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sequestration, and where losses in biodiversity can increase the rate of climate change. Therefore, human-induced habitat destruction due to our endless exploitation of resources affects our wildlife and ecosystems, which in turn affects our climate by destroying important carbon sinks. From this, we learn two important factors of how our society is directly affecting our planet in a huge way. One being the production of energy for electricity, and the second, the number of resources we produce and consume to allow us to live the comfortable, convenient lifestyles we currently have. This has to change, and it's up to us as individuals to enact this change. But in order to truly succeed, cooperation and working together is key. Of paramount importance is high-level environmental policy, which drives funding opportunities, informs laws, and demonstrates political will for change. Thankfully, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has introduced the ambitious EU Green Deal.
The European Green Deal is on one hand our vision for a climate-neutral continent in 2050. Our goal is to reconcile the economy with our planet, to reconcile the way we produce, the way we consume with our planet, and to make it work for our people. Therefore, the European Green Deal is on one hand about cutting emissions, but on the other hand about creating jobs. We care also about biodiversity and forests, agriculture and food, green cities, and, for example, the circular economy. European citizens are changing their lifestyle to protect the climate and the planet.
Two main aims of the green transition are to become carbon neutral by 2050, and the deal aims to promote an action plan to boost the efficient use of resources by moving to a clean, circular economy. So what does this mean? Is there more to it than just using big companies to switch to renewable energy sources and putting our rubbish in the correct recycling bins? How can doing this help people at a local level and at the same time increase employment? How do we ensure that no one is left behind? As I learnt in the previous episode of this podcast, there is more to sustainability than we typically understand. And so I went to meet people from organisations which share the social economy principles of putting people over profit, democratic governance where all people have a say in the outcome of the company, and reinvestment back into training, local employment and services of general interest. In this episode, I meet Dirk van Sintian, President of REScoop, and Elaine Hanlon, Policy Officer on Social Affairs at Reuse. So let's meet them and find out what their organisations represent.
I am one of the founders of a renewable energy cooperative, EcoPower. And for EcoPower, I am the president of the European Federation of Renewable Energy Cooperatives or Citizen Energy Cooperatives, REScoop.eu. We've been using actually European research and demonstration projects to forge tools and services for the energy cooperatives across Europe. So the federation was founded at the end of 2013. And let's say we now reach out to about half of the known energy cooperatives in Europe.
We are a network of social enterprises that are involved in reuse, repair and recycling. And reuse has been around since just over 19 years. Next year we'll celebrate our 20th year anniversary. There's about 31 organisations involved, and they're spread across about 26 countries across Europe and one in the US of A. So we're working to promote reuse repair, especially at EU level, and working very actively with our members and other lobbyists around the Brussels bubble, so to speak, engaging around the circular economy and social economy as well.
REScoop work with cooperative energy communities. I wanted to know how Dirk's own cooperative worked and how it got started.
So EcoPower started here in the mill in 1991 with a few people around our kitchen table. So now, almost 30 years later, we have 60,000 members, and we provide almost 1.7% of the Flemish households with their own green electricity. And since we sold the electricity without making profit, because the cooperative doesn't have to make profit, so we were quite cheap. So a lot of people found us. And this has led to the fact that EcoPower, most of its members only have one share of 250 euros. So it's not the story of rich dentists that invest their money in renewables.
Really, energy cooperatives like EcoPower provide us all with an opportunity to be involved in the green transition, and it's not only for the richest among us. Turning now to reuse, I want to begin by understanding what the circular economy is that the green transition explicitly mentions.
So the circular economy is basically the opposite of what we are seeing nowadays, as in a linear or throwaway economy. I say this because it's important to understand what the difference is in the linear economy and the circular economy. The linear economy is, again, it's very much a kind of a take, make and throw away culture, whereas the circular economy keeps everything in use, products, resources in use for as long as possible. And it's all about avoiding the generation of waste.
This podcast is about the impact the social economy can have. You can find out more in our first podcast with Social Economy Europe's director, Victor Messeguer. But I wanted to know what the social economy means to REScoop and to reuse.
The economy doesn't work, and society doesn't work as it is now. It exploits people, animals, nature. It's disastrous for the future generations. So we must change it. So I don't think cooperative economy or social economy is a niche. I think we must conquer the economy. We should democratize the economy. That doesn't mean that there can't be private investors, private entrepreneurs. So we think that certain things are commons, like the wind is a common, like the sun is a common. Certain things, they should be at disposal of everyone and not be privatized. What do we have to do the coming decade, till 2050? The energy production will be decentralized, comes very close to the citizens. It should be empowering the local communities, the local people. And so the wind turbines in a rural municipality in France should be owned by the people who live there, so that the revenues stay local and that also young people can stay there, that there is internet in these rural villages, glass fiber cable, and so on and so on. When these revenues stay local, and they will prosper. So it's no use that the energy transition in Europe leads to all these installations being owned by the old utilities or new monopolists by Google or Apple or whoever. So this is our story. So the energy transition should lead to energy democracy. That's what we say.
A lot of people, when they hear of reuse, they don't think of the social economy. They think purely of environment or circular economy. But for us, I think, of course, over the years, there's this understanding that when you're working in the circular economy, you're also very aware of people's well-being, you're aware of human rights, HR issues as well. And again, it's all about respecting and and opening up places for people to work and to contribute to their environment and to jobs, which in turn helps their well-being. They work with people where they're at. They work all about inclusion, about solidarity. And like I said, it's about the respect for people and for the planet.
Reuse promotes approved reuse centres. Do these give opportunities for inclusive employment for those far away from the job market, who are long-term unemployed, or people with disabilities?
What we've seen in many different workplaces is workplaces are suiting one kind of people or persons. They're not actually realistic to the needs of quite a lot, or the majority of workers who, for various needs, might need more support gaining access to work, keeping their employment. So the social economy is fantastic for this. I think that reuse and repair centres, they are also kind of answering the needs of I suppose socially, the kinds of people that would need a little bit more support maybe to gain employment and to continue with employment, but they're also working towards reducing waste. So for example, if you had to throw away your laptop or an electrical item, if that piece went to landfill, first of all, it's damaging to the environment. We know there's certain items that, of course, shouldn't be thrown into landfill or discarded. It's inappropriate and it's damaging, first of all, to the environment. But it's also damaging because somebody could have, for example, refurbished that laptop. Somebody could have taken out the pieces, tried to maybe mend it first, and if it wasn't repairable, somebody could then use some of the precious metals. So the idea for the reuse and repair centres is to, I suppose, avoid this linear economy where we see things that are just being used a couple of times or for a shorter period of time. And what we're doing is trying to encourage basically more employment across the community that welcomes people where they're at.
Thinking practically, what can listeners or the community do to meet the targets of the Green Deal by maybe getting themselves involved in energy co-ops? Or where can you find information about how to reuse and repair if you're thinking about getting rid of unwanted or unneeded items?
Well, most energy cooperatives, they start very small with volunteers, parents of a school who want to install solar panels on the school, so the school lower energy bill, for instance. It often starts with some solar panels on a school or a public building in a municipality. And work with volunteers. Quite a lot of our energy cooperatives across Europe have the size of a few hundred members and a few 100,000 of investments. Then they engage in wind, for instance, and then they can also employ people. They get empowered and they do something about insulation. They inform people how to insulate their homes. They help them with insulating their homes. We see now quite a lot, because we have to get rid of even of gas, is that they start working around district heating. Some of the cooperatives, they become very large, especially those who are also a supplier, like my own cooperative, EcoPower, or Some Energia in Spain. Has grown bigger than EcoPower now.
So I can give a nice example from one of our members, Community Resources Network Ireland, and they recently published a how-to guide on what to do with bulky waste items or bulky items that can actually be reused. So this survey, again by CRNI, which you can find on their website, it found that about 1.2 million potentially reusable items were going to waste in Ireland each year. And a lot of these items were actually office furniture. And I say this now because I think it's an interesting time for us to discuss. People are working from home a lot more. There is, again, a lot of people who are buying office furniture or things to help them support to this new way that we found ourselves working and adapting. And I think it's important to realize that there is a huge amount of goods that can be reused and that people can actually find that work very well and that can adapt to their surroundings and their settings. And this is just one example, I think, of especially kind of the working environment and bringing that into your home and maybe the choices that people can make that can be reused, that they can find that are quality, that are comfortable. And of course, there's no harm to do some research, finding the right chair, exactly, finding the right desk for you and your needs.
For those who are interested in how to get started, REScoop have a new website available with full toolkits on how to start an energy co-op. I was interested in examples of how the social economy was working in practice to help with this green transition, especially from members of both REScoop and Reuse. Information for any examples can be found in the description of the podcast.
Saarbeck, for instance, where they transformed an old military base to an energy park with wind turbines, solar panels and batteries, and where they now are an exporter of electricity. This municipality and their cooperative, they export electricity. Some cooperatives work in rather poor areas in London, where they not only install solar panels, but they also teach young people how to install solar panels. So they become installers of solar panels. In Oxford, where there's a very active low carbon hub, it's called, where they engage in all kinds of projects, renewable energy efficiency. In France, Éolien Pays de Vilaine, where they started, they had to overcome all obstacles in France with a monopolist, and now they are helping other communities to do the same.
Something that we're working on now is a reuse innovation forum. And it's basically going to be a space on our website where our members can actually come together and they can innovate together. They can actually network and speak about ideas that are maybe developing, ideas that they would like a little bit more support on. This is going to be launched later on this month. So we're very excited about that. If you're lucky to be living in Brussels, you may have or may not have come across Les Petits Riens, and this is another wonderful example from our network of a place where you can donate items that you may not use anymore. I think we also have a nice example that was recently launched in Austria. So one of our members called Repair.eu, they have joined forces to kind of raise awareness of the use of textiles and what social enterprises are doing to collect used textiles, to create a platform, and it's called sashspenden.at, and it's basically a go-to guide for citizens if they would like to donate their textiles to social enterprises. This year, Reuse is also compiling good examples of apps that can be used and that are being used across Europe. So if you'd like to stay tuned to our social media and our website, later this year you should expect to find one place that you'll find all these beautiful apps and initiatives that are happening across communities.
There are clearly fantastic examples from across Europe, and I strongly encourage listeners to contact REScoop and Reuse to find out more about the initiatives in their area. But what needs to happen to accelerate our societal transition to the Green Deal?
We have to accelerate by teaming up with municipalities. They sign the Covenant of Mayors, they commit, and Europe tries to help them. The member states should now, with the transposition of the new directives, they have to make an enabling framework for energy communities. So they have to give citizens and groups of citizens, cooperatives, a piece of the pie. This morning I had a meeting with the European Climate Foundation. It's about speeding up in Eastern Europe. There are some other foundations that are trying to help us. There will be a film on community energy next year, paid by the Foundation of Patagonia, the outdoor clothing. So it's not a commercial, no, they want to support the community energy idea and they want to spread it across the world.
Reuse and our members, we are working very much to reduce the kinds of products that are going into landfill, that are being really disposed of prematurely. So to make this happen, we really need to make sure that sort of taxations on materials and products are more appropriate. We need to see less taxation on wages, and especially when it comes to sort of repair activities and second-hand products, what we promote is a zero VAT on this. So this means, for example, those who are being involved in repair and refurbishment, that it becomes a little bit more affordable for everybody to actually go ahead and get their items repaired and refurbished so they don't have to replace them. The only kind of challenges that we can see quite often is very much around the issue of insurance. So again, what happens, for example, if we don't have the guarantee of how long a product has been in circulation? A lot of our members, of course, they are making sure that, for example, if it's electrical goods, that they have to have a year's guarantee to ensure that it's safe if it goes back to somebody's home. So again, for us, a lot of it is also about making sure that the standards are being met. So if we have these lovely repair shops, that there's also, I suppose, adequate support to make sure that they're safe items going home. And for us, it's also very much about the design of products. So instead of products using glues and things that make it impossible for them to be repaired or refurbished, we are very much encouraging the use of, screws and things that actually will make it possible for people to repair themselves.
Before I knew about reuse and their initiatives, whenever I needed a new item or product, I always found it more convenient to just buy a new one. I never really considered reusing or recycling. I wonder if in the future we can have reuse centres as convenient as local corner shops, where it's actually cheaper to repair our products than to buy new ones. So I wonder what the vision of reuse is for the future of the circular economy.
So for us, I think, what do we see in the future? There's a huge amount of employment opportunities and possibilities in construction and demolition. There is a huge amount of possible exchanges in skill exchange, and I suppose ensuring that skills, finding solutions that work for local communities, that ensure that we reduce our waste, but that also make repair and reuse a little more of a normal part of life. So I think this is our vision, that we see that people support one another, communities will repair, and there are avenues for people to be a little bit more circular, and this will really, I think, have a positive impact for everybody, for people and planet.
So I wanted to find out what we can do as individuals to either get involved in energy co-ops or the circular economy, and simply to do our bit for the environment.
Maybe it's a good idea to bring these people who already have solar panels, bring them together. Yeah, they made a decision, I invest in solar panels, because they will get new possibilities, and this they must do together. Or someone else, a big utility, will offer it to them as a service. But then, and of course, install solar panels, soon maybe a battery at home, electrical cars, share electrical cars, especially with your neighbors. We have quite a lot of new members that do electrical car sharing. So, and we even brought them together as a federation. It's called the Mobility Factory. It's a European cooperative society, the Mobility Factory. And we share the app behind it. So they all have the same app. So soon you might, I think even now, with the app of the city of Ghent, the cooperative there, you can rent a car in Barcelona So Mobilitat is active in Catalonia, for instance. They're also part of the Mobility Factory. If you refer to our website, in 2 weeks' time, our new website will be there. And the tools will be better presented. And so it will be a real toolbox for individuals, starting cooperatives, for municipalities, policymakers, so they can find all the best practices and things that they need. Yeah.
I would say you can start with small changes. I think that people are very much also aware of this, the damage and danger of fast fashion, of buying things potentially online that are maybe not as good quality items. And I think that this is somewhere that we can all start with. We can all work from this as a starting point, going to maybe your secondhand store, seeing if there's an item that you would like to use, giving it a new lease of life. I think that this is a wonderful place to start off with. And again, buying quality items, things that you can also repair in the future. Another example is just to find a little bit of what's going on in your locality, maybe what national campaigns are happening. And the internet is wonderful for this. So even if it's not across a network perspective, you can also maybe start something small. And maybe nowadays it could be online, but previously people were doing these lovely exchange events with their clothes as well. And I think it's a great place to start to really ask yourself, what am I buying? Is it going to last well? Is the material good quality and where it came from? So I think it's a good space to start.
It is clear from these examples how organisations like REScoop and Reuse are crucial components of the green transition. Most importantly, the social economy ensures that nobody is left behind, as Commission President von der Leyen inspired us when speaking about the Green Deal. It is important that the social economy has a voice and is included in policies related to the green transition. Future episodes of this podcast will include the social economy and sustainable finance, more sustainable housing, and how the social economy can help housing reform in the green transition, the social economy's role in more inclusive employment, particularly for people with disabilities, as well as how the social economy is involved with migrant entrepreneurship. Thank you for listening to Social Economy Talks.